Welcome, folks, to Circa Capital's presentation of Strong Start, Strong Finish, the College Graduate's Guide to Saving and Investing for a Lifetime. My name is Travis Raish, and I'll be guiding us through this discussion of why it is so important for us to take charge of our own financial situation, especially when we are younger and have so much time ahead of us to do so. This series is really geared for certain groups of people, college students. If you are a college student or a recent college graduate and you're looking for ways to get a good start on saving or investing early, this presentation or series of presentations is definitely directed towards you, but also parents or grandparents of college students. If you have a child or a grandchild who's in college or graduating soon or recently graduated, and you want to be prepared to discuss the importance of saving and investing early, certainly this series can help you as well. And frankly, folks, sometimes life throws us some curves, some curveballs. We get off to a rocky start. We make some bad decisions along the way. So even if we feel like we have lost some time, it's never too late to start. Okay, so anyone who is looking to be spurred into saving and investing, who is looking for some reasons to really put behind their decision making process, this series can definitely help you as well. We have broken this up into 3 recorded sessions. In this first session, we're going to tackle the first 2 of these 6 questions. Why we should care? Why should we care about saving and investing early? And when should we start? How do we go about doing that? So we'll tackle those issues here. When we talk about why we should care, okay, why should we care about saving and investing early? It's really because the dynamics of retirement have changed. Okay, the retirement that your grandparents, maybe even your parents, were looking at, and some of the sources of income that they had available to them really won't be available to us, especially as younger folks when you get towards retirement. In the good old days, you might have been able to rely on a company pension. You spent a lifetime working there and retired, and they continue to pay you some income. We don't really see that too often anymore. Okay, and especially if you're entering the workforce today, the chances of you finding a company sponsored pension plan, a defined benefit plan, slim to none. Social Security, well, Social Security will probably be there for us, but it won't look the same as it does today. We'll talk a little bit about what some of those changes are here in just a few minutes. You can always rely on savings and investing. And so it is critically important to take advantage of the opportunities you have in front of you and be proactive about saving. Let's talk a little bit about Social Security. We mentioned that things are changing there. What is Social Security? Well, in essence, it's a program of insurance. It's maintained by the federal government, and it's paid for by mandatory payments from people like you and me, from our wages and from our employers. Okay? And just to give a sense of how Social Security works, we put together this little flow chart. You are at the top of the flow chart. Let's say you go and you get yourself a job and you have a nice career going. You're receiving your wage, and out of every single paycheck that you receive, you have a portion that is carved out and sent to the Social Security Trust Fund. Well, in essence, those funds are swept pretty quickly out of the trust fund. They go to the U.S. Treasury, and those funds, those cash flows, are paid out to retired workers. So your money is going into the system, and as quickly as it goes in, it flows out and it's replaced with IOUs. The thought here, folks, is that when you get to your retirement, that there will be some workers behind you who are working, paying into the system, and that their cash flows into the system will go to support you when you get to your retirement. And that sounds a little bit, a bit like funny math to a lot of people. And the reality is that it kind of is. And so you got to ask that question: is Social Security reliable? Can I rely on Social Security when I get to retirement? Well, the answer is probably not. And again, at least not in its same form. And there's a lot of reasons behind it, but in essence, your contributions, they're not going and sitting in an account somewhere. They're not being invested in anything of value. Okay, they're flowing right back out of the system to retired workers. You cannot access that money. That money that you pay in, pay period after pay period, is not yours to access whenever you want to, just because you want to access it. And the value of your account is really not based on your contributions and how they grow over time. Probably the most disconcerting thing about Social Security, though, is that what you receive at the end when you get to retirement is entirely dependent on what Congress decides you should receive, what they believe they can afford to pay you. So that's a tremendous amount of control that we put in the hands of somebody else when it comes to our livelihood and our retirement. A lot of people don't want to ask that question about, how healthy is Social Security, but we have to, especially because things are changing so quickly. Some facts about Social Security. The average person receiving Social Security benefits in 2011 received about $14,000 a year. And for some of us, that might sound like a lot of money, especially if you are living on a shoestring budget as a college student. $14,000 might sound pretty darn good. But to put that into comparison, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services determined that the poverty level in the U.S. is just $11,000 in income per year. And so Social Security recipients were receiving just barely more than the poverty level of income here in the U.S. Okay, so Social Security, if Social Security is your only source of income in retirement today, you are living barely above the poverty level. And unfortunately, folks, there are a considerable number of Americans who are in precisely that position, maybe because they didn't plan ahead. You really do have to ask that question. What happens if Social Security benefits are cut? Again, not really a question that we want to ask, okay, but definitely a question we should ask. From the 2010 Congressional Budget Office report on Social Security, they report that under current law, resources dedicated to Social Security programs will become insufficient to pay full benefits in 2039. That means in just a short 25 or 30 years, the level of benefits that people have grown accustomed to will not be able to be supported. There will not be enough money coming into the system to pay the benefits that are projected at that point in time. From the Social Security Administration's own website, they even recognize the problems and the issues. And our friends and elected representatives up there in Congress, they also recognize the problem as well. The last 5 trustees' reports have indicated that Social Security trust funds would become exhausted between 2037 and 2041. And if no legislative change is enacted, if Congress does not get their act together, the scheduled revenues will be insufficient to pay full benefits. In fact, will be sufficient to pay only about 3/4 of the scheduled benefits after trust fund exhaustion. In other words, without having increases in taxes or a cutting of benefits, Social Security will have problems making payments to people in their retirement in just a couple of decades. So if you can get past that first part, understanding why it's important. We can't rely on company pensions really anymore. Social Security is going to change. It's probably going to be there in some form, but it's not going to look like it does today. We really do need to take more control of our own situation. So we got to ask that next question, when should we start? Okay, well, short answer, start right away. Okay, I mean, it really is that simple. But anytime we start thinking about these things, it's good to understand what the trade-offs are. Okay, it's fun to kind of play mental math games for those of you who are so inclined about what it means. If you save a lot today, what does that translate into in terms of savings and investments for you down the road? Now, there is an extreme example that I like to use here just to help us gain a sense of perspective. Okay. Now, most people would never consider saving 50% of their income. Okay. You get your paycheck every 2 weeks and you sock away half of it. Okay. That's almost a ludicrous thing to think, or a concept to try to take in. But the reality is that if you can answer yes to that question, can I live on every other paycheck? You may have to work for only 15 years before you could choose to retire. Now imagine, folks, if you're in your 20s, 25 years old, you start saving 50% of your income, you might be able to retire at 40. And by saving that much, you'll be able to replace your full working income with investment income from your portfolio at that point in time. Now, as a 25-year-old, you might be looking at 40 saying, that's way too old. Well, believe me, 40 will creep up on you quicker than you think. So it's definitely something to think about. Well, again, 50%, that's a pretty extreme example. What does the conventional wisdom say? What does the worldly wisdom say about saving? Well, oftentimes you hear people say, save 10%. Okay, just pay yourself first, save 10%, and invest it for the long term. Okay, well, what's the difference there? How does that trade-off work? If you save 10% instead of 50%, you may have to work for 65 years or more to get to that same point of replacing your full working income with investment income. That means if you're 25 today and you didn't want to think about working at 40, we're talking about working until 80 under this circumstance. Okay. Most people don't want to work until they're 80, though. All right. Most people are planning on retiring somewhere around 65. And so if you did that, if you quit early, you would certainly have to reduce your standard of living or rely on something else like Social Security to make up the difference. And this is the decision path that will put you in the same pinch that most Americans are in today. This is the same process that many Americans went through thinking about their saving and investing, and which put them into the position that they're in today, where their portfolio is not large enough to support them in the way that they've become accustomed to over the years. Well, if 50% is just kind of crazy, and if 10% just doesn't really get the job done, what if we boosted the savings a little bit? What if we did 20% instead of 10? Well, if you can save 20%, you may have to work for 40 years to replace your full working income. If you're 25 today, that means that you might work until you're 65. But the difference here is that when you get to 65, if you've been saving 20% of your income, this at least puts you in a position of strength. You get to retire on time, and you don't have to rely on anything else, including Social Security, to support you in your retirement. Okay? Any savings, folks, is better than no savings. So a choice to save 10% or even 5% is still better than a choice to do nothing. But if you can commit to saving 20%, it really does put you in a significant position of strength. So that basically wraps up those first two questions here in part one. In our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about how we get started. We understand why it's important to save and invest, and we're committed to doing so as quickly as we can. How do we go about doing that? Those are the topics that we will try to tackle together. If you do have any questions about your specific situation, we are always here to help you. Circa Capital is a fee-only investment management and financial planning firm. And while that is a mouthful, essentially what it means is that we are focused on serving our clients. We do not sell investment products. We are not paid on commission for anything that we do. We are committed to serving our clients' needs and providing good, solid education. We do believe that everyone can achieve financial success, though not everyone will achieve financial success. We know that financial success is achieved intentionally. It's not often stumbled upon by dumb luck. It's better to be intentional about the wealth building process, and we help our clients achieve financial success by providing education about how money and investing works, by helping our clients set appropriate financial goals, and by investing in ways which have proven successful. We hope you have enjoyed your time in this first part of our presentation. Please look forward to part 2 of our Strong Start, Strong Finish series. Thank you.